وسلموا تسليما حتى تنالوا جنة ونعيما صلوا عليه.
Assalamu alaikum. We're talking to Sister Yvonne Ridley of Cage UK. Sister Yvonne, we were talking about the prevent policy of the British government and its strategy to combat extremism, what it defines as extremism. Could you give us some practical examples of how prevent has affected the Muslim community in Britain?
Well, there have been various initiatives that on the surface seem perfectly innocent, maybe a woman's group, a child and mother group, and you have supervisors in there who are collecting or gathering intelligence on conversations that the mother and toddlers group might be having. There are cases of women holding women's circles where they discuss many things, from childbirth to period pains to the price of food, as well as maybe Islamic issues. And again, the Prevent scheme has moved in and gathering information. No other community in the UK would tolerate this. It's inconceivable that you would have special branch officers working to find out what the local Women's Institute are discussing. But it seems as though it's open season on Muslims in Britain. Something I hate to admit, because I don't like to see us having a victim mentality, but it's very difficult when you have these crackpot schemes funded by the government that are used as a means of spying on the community. And it seems that everyone has been targeted. GPs, doctors are being asked to report on any signs of extremism. Well, if you're with a thermometer and a stethoscope, how on earth are you supposed, it's absolute nonsense trying to get people to turn people into spies in their community. And then on top of that, once having identified perhaps particularly vulnerable people, they get a visit from the police or the intelligence services, and they're told, we need you to spy on your community. We want you to go into your local mosque or your local women's group or your local whatever group it is, and spy and report back. And they use personal information that they've gleaned. We know that you're getting married soon, or we know that you're about to get divorced. We know that this is a trying time for you emotionally and financially. We will probably be able to help as long as you help us, and we'd hate for anything to become really difficult for you at this challenging time. So basically they're using emotional blackmail and browbeating people into becoming spies. Quite often, these people have no information, no means of gathering intelligence, no know-how in this sort of subterfuge, and they're completely at a loss. What I would say is, if any sort of approach like that is made to you, go and see a lawyer. Despite the threats that the police or the intelligence services will make, a lawyer can make it stop, because as long as they think they can work outside the law, some of these agencies will use every trick in the book, and they do target vulnerable people.
And I suppose that's where the work of Cage also comes in terms of supporting people who have experienced this kind of approach.
Yes, but Cage has a multi-pronged approach. I mean, we need to educate people, we need to raise public awareness, we need to let them know that this is what is happening. Sometimes it comes as a great relief to individuals who will contact us and say, I thought I was alone. I didn't realise that this is common practice. And so, you know, a cage is there as a safety net. We're there to help people who feel as though they've been trapped. And that's just one aspect of the advocacy work that that Cage does. The work is very much international, but it also translates to work on the ground locally as well.
How does this make you feel as a British citizen, seeing this kind of thing happening in your country, and as a Muslim?
As a British person, I'm absolutely outraged. And, you know, when I was brought up in school with British values, we always saw Britishness as being straight, honest, open, fair, just, values that really should translate everywhere anyway. I certainly see nothing British in sneaking around communities, sowing seeds of fear, distrust, spreading this cancer. That isn't British at all. As a Muslim, and of course I am relatively new to Islam, I've been a Muslim now since 2003, I see this as an absolutely despicable way to target a community which is very solid in some ways, but lacking in confidence in other ways. And this lack of confidence makes it quite vulnerable. And some of the tactics used by the government have left me absolutely bereft, threatening people with removing their citizenship. In fact, the other day I was walking around the Apartheid Museum, and I can only think, as I said before, this is from where David Cameron is getting his policies. You know, because Britain is now removing people's citizenship, and yet embraced within Nelson Mandela's legacy is that the citizenship of every South African is protected, because he knew the feeling of insecurity and instability within his own community. You know, the things that tear down communities. And so it was wonderful to see this embraced in the new South Africa. And isn't it ironic that, you know, during his memorial service, the British Prime Minister was there with all the other European heads and the President of the United States, eulogising Nelson Mandela, while at the same time developing and formulating government policies that Mandela was committed to tearing up from apartheid South Africa. You know, the detention without trial in South Africa under the apartheid regime was initially 90 days without charge or trial. The British government is nearly there now. So while South Africa is emerging into this brave new world it has created, a world free of injustices is what it's striving for, the British government is going backwards and emulating a brutal regime from South Africa's past, which has no place in the 21st century. And this is what I find so ironic, that Britain and America were the flag bearers for democracy, trying to force democracy through the gun in Iraq and Afghanistan. And while they're trying to force their brand of democracy onto a people who don't want it, back home, they're bombing our freedoms and liberties. And unfortunately, it's the Muslim community in Britain which is bearing the brunt of these policies.
Sister Yvonne, maybe we could talk a little bit about sort of work into the international work of Cage and what they do on the international stage. But first, could you tell us a little bit about how you were introduced to Cage?
I was working in Al Jazeera in Qatar, and we were trying to get some information about Guantanamo, which was, everybody knew of its existence, but nobody knew what was happening inside. Nobody knew who was inside. And then I discovered this heroic little organisation, probably being run in someone's back kitchen, and they had a list of every single detainee. They had painstakingly gone through all sorts of avenues it was like a giant jigsaw puzzle, and they had pulled together the identities of every single detainee, where they were picked up, how they were picked up, because the common misconception about Guantanamo is that the majority of the detainees were picked up in Afghanistan fighting, but they weren't. There was no conventional battlefield. 95% of those in Guantanamo were kidnapped, renditioned from various parts of the world, including Africa, and taken to Guantanamo. So, again, you know, held indefinitely, as some still are today.
Mm. We'll be right back after the break.
صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما حتى تنالوا جنة ونعيما صلوا عليه